Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Gananaham Tva Ganapatigum Havamahe Kavim Kavinamupamattravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anasrinvan Utidhikti Dasadanam Ano Devi Saraswati Vajebhirvajinivati Dhinama Vitrayavatu Ganeshaya Namaha Saraswatyai Namaha Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Shuklambaradharam Vishnum Sasivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vighnopasantaye Yasya Dviradavaktraadhyah Parishadhyah Parasatam Vignam Nignanti Satatam Vishvaksenam Tamasraye Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheswaraha Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullara Vindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha. With Bhagwan's grace, we came up to Slokam number 9 in 14th Adhyayam, Gunatraya Vibhaga Yogaha. Sattvam Sukhe Sanjayati Rajak Karbani Bharata Jnanam Avrutya tu Tamaha Pramade Sanjayati Uta. Slokam number 10. My dear Bharata, the Sattva tendency will overpower the Rajasic and the Tamasic tendencies and rise up. The Rajas will do the same with Sattva and Tamas. The Tamas will do the same with Sattva and Rajas tendencies. Rajas Tamascha Abhibhuya Sattvam Bhavati Bharata Rajaha Sattvam Tamaschaiva Tamaha Sattvam Rajas Tata. Rajas Tamascha Abhibhuya Sattvam Bhavati Bharata Rajaha Sattvam Tamaschaiva Tamaha Sattvam Rajas Tata. Rajas Tamascha Abhibhuya Sattvam Bhavati Bharata Rajaha Sattvam Tamascha Tamaha Sattvam Rajas Tata. Padangal are Rajaha Tamaha Cha Abhibhuya Sattvam Bhavati Bharata Rajaha Sattvam Tamaha Cha Eva Tamaha Sattvam Rajaha Tata. Bharata Sattvam, the sattvic tendency, the sattvic tendency, the balanced tendency, right? The tendency that tends to balance in our approach to things. Rajaha Tamaha Cha, the Rajasic and Tamasic tendencies, Abhibhuya, controlling it, bringing it under control. Bhavati, it rises up, it becomes dominant. When sattvic tendency is dominant, Rajasic and Tamasic tendencies have been put under. The same way, what does Rajaha do? What does Rajogunam do when that rises up? Sattvam Tamaha Cha Eva. The sattvic tendencies and Tamasic tendencies, Abhibhuya Bhavati. It controls it and rises up. Tata, in the same way, Tamaha, the Tamasic tendency, Sattvam Rajaha, the sattvic tendency and Rajasic tendency, Abhibhuya Bhavati. It controls it and rises up. So at any given moment, you will find that one tendency is dominant, is always up, and the other two tendencies have been controlled and down. That is what Bhagavan is describing here. Rajastamascha Sattvam Bhavati Bharata Rajaha Sattvam Tamaschaiva Tamas Sattvam Rajasthatha. Slokam number 11. When wisdom and knowledge shine through every opening in the body, then it must be understood with certainty that the sattva tendency is predominant. The question comes, sattvic tendency is up, the other two tendencies are down, rajasic tendency is up, the other two tendencies are down. So how do I know which tendency is really up? Bhagavan is giving us the lakshanam, which one is really up. Okay, by how can we know which tendency is dominant? So here he begins with sattvic tendency. Sarvadvareshu dehesmin prakasha upajayate jnanam yada tada vidyat vivruddham sattvam uta. Sarvadvareshu dehesmin prakasha upajayate jnanam yada tada vidyat vivruddham sattvam uta. Sarvadvareshu dehesmin prakasha upajayate jnanam yada tada vidyat vivruddham sattvam ityuta. Padangal are sarva dvareshu dehe, okay, asmin prakasha upajayate jnanam yada tada vidyat vivruddham sattvam iti uta. Yada, when, asmin dehe, in this body, sarvadvareshu, through all the openings we have. What are the various openings we have? The one very clearest indication is our eyes. When you look at somebody's eyes, you know whether the person is a good person or not a good person, whether the person is a loving person, a sattvic person, like looking at Kanchi Paramacharya, Ramana Maharishi, people like that. There is love pouring out of their ears, out of their eyes. When they speak, the love comes out of their mouth, right? So sweet it is. So like that, all the openings that we have, openings here means just not the physical openings. The openings means the dvareshu is really a point of entry. We must look at dvaram does not mean door. It means really a point of entry. Point of entry is point of contact. And point of contact is all the five indriyangal we have, in the senses of perception, karmendriyangal, senses of action. So all those is what Bhagavan is talking about here. Through all the openings, all the points of entry, all the points of contact in this body, what happens? Jnanam, wisdom, knowledge. Imagine interacting with a person who has experienced Atmanyanam, who has experienced the oneness with Bhagavan, and who is always one with Bhagavan. And how fortunate and blessed we will be, right? So that Jnanam, that wisdom, Prakashaha, that illumines, that shines, right? And the shining is not just the light that comes from a flame of a lamp or from electric bulb. No. This is much more than that. It is so cool and bright, so comforting and encompassing. It's all inclusive. And all agitations and all negative thoughts disappear. They vaporize in its presence. Okay? So that prakasham upajayate, when that appears, when that is present, then tada at that time, uta, certainly, for sure, sattvam, the sattvic tendency, vivruddham iti, predominant, present in a most dominating manner, very strong. Iti, thus, vidyate, must be understood. Sarvadvareshu dehesmin prakasha upajayate jnanam yada tada vidyate vivruddham sattvam iti uta. Slokam number 12. So what happens? What are the indications, the signs that Rajasic Gunam is predominant? But Bharata Shaba, when the Rajasic tendency is predominant, then greed, mischief of the senses, compulsion for action, absence of peace, and acquisitive tendencies will be evident. So we can check ourselves which tendency is predominant in each one of us at any given time. Okay. Lobha pravrittihi arambha karmanam asamaha spruha rajaha etani jayante vivruddhe bharatarshaba. Lobha pravritti arambha karmanam asamaha spruha rajasyetani jayante vivruddhe bharatarshaba. Lobha pravritirarambha karmanam asamaha spruha rajasyetani jayante vivruddhe bharatarshaba. Padangal lobha pravrittihi arambha karmanam asamaha spruha rajaha etani jayante vivruddhe bharatarshaba. Bharatarshaba, the best among the Bharatas. Okay, and now lobha means greed. Pravrittihi is when the senses are very active, the mischief of the senses. We are all slaves. We conduct ourselves as slaves to our senses, right? And so that the senses play mischief. The pravrittihi. So pravrittihi means also creation. Pravrittihi means things that keeps on generating itself, and they happen because the senses play mischief. That is why something gets created, because the mind gets attached to it, as we saw in second adhyayam. And you can, those of you interested, you can take it as a piece of homework. You don't have to do it, only if you're interested. Okay? And only if you want to, you can go back to second adhyayam, which has something like 70 slokas. Okay? And I'll even give you the clue. It is in the second half of second adhyayam, where the senses and what happens and desire and all is given. And that is what the pravrittihi is. Okay? Pravrittihi karmanam arambha, that impel you, okay, to take action, to take up action. What is it that's impelling us all the time into action? Why are we always want to do this or that, or even, surf on the internet repeatedly, whatever it is that we do, right? What is it that's impelling us to be active? Karmanam arambha, okay, that is present. When that is present, ashamaha, samam means control of the mind. Okay, damam, samam. Damam means withdrawal of the senses from the sense object. Now, after having withdrawn the senses from the sense objects, for example, I see a plate of Diwali sweets sitting on the countertop. Okay, and I know sweets are there, and I don't want to take. I want to control myself, right? So I withdraw my eyes from it. Okay, so I don't see it anymore. That is dhammam. But after having withdrawn it, if my mind continued to think about that sweet sitting on the countertop, then I've really not withdrawn, have I? So to be able to withdraw the mind also from the sense object, that is samam. Now, ashamaha. So what happens when you withdraw the mind from sense object, when you really don't desire the sense objects? What is the result? Result is peace. Really shanti. That descends immediately. There is no delay. Ashamaha means absence of that peace. Agitation. Okay? When there is agitation all the time, mental agitation. Spruha. Spruha means, one meaning is touch. Touching what? Spruha here means acquisitive desire that comes from pravrittihi. That because pravrittihi results in karmanam arambha. Due to asamaha, without control or withdrawal of the mind, what happens? Okay, your desire multiplies. I want this, I want that. You want to acquire things. That acquisitive desire, spruha. Okay, when all these are there, etani, all these, are rajasi vivruddhe. Okay, Rajasi, from the Rajasic tendency, Vivruddhe, they are dominant, they become strong. Jayante, they take birth from the strong, dominant Rajasic tendency. That is what gives rise to Lobam, Pravritihi, Karmanam Arambaha, Ashamaha, and Spruha. Okay, when these are there, you can understand it is a Rajasic tendency that is dominant. So the Tamasic and Sattvic tendencies are controlled. They are under. They are not playing at that time. Lobha pravritirarambah karmanam asamaspruha rajasyetani jayante vivruddhe bharatarshabha. Next question, automatically. Swami, when this tamasic tendency is dominant, okay, what are the indications, signs of that? Slokam number 13. Oh, the best of Kurus, when the tamasic tendency is predominant, dull-wittedness, lassitude, delusion, and attachment will be evident. Aprakasaha apravrittihi cha pramado moha eva cha tamasyetani jayante vivruddhe kurunandana. Aprakaso pravrittischa pramado moha eva cha tamasyetani jayante vivruddhe kurunandana. Aprakaso pravrittischa pramado moha eva cha tamasyetani jayante vivruddhe kurunandana. Padangal are aprakasaha, apravrittihi cha, pramadaha, moha eva cha. Tamaha etani, tamasi etani, jayante vivruddhe kurunandana. Kuru, the Kuru, the Kaurava, the Kuru lineage. Nandana, one who brings happiness. Okay? And now we call our child as Nanda, right? Now, Anandam, the word we use. The happiness, bliss. So who gives happiness to you? Your child brings happiness to you. So we call our child Nanda. Okay? Another name given for Krishna, right? So here Kuru Nandana, one who brings happiness to the lineage of Kuru. Why? Because of his accomplishments, because of his character, okay? Because of his good values. Kurunandana. Aprakasaha. Previously we saw Prakasaha. For the houses, the Sattvic Gunam is Prakasam, right? Here it's exactly the opposite. Aprakasaha. Very dull-wittedness. Very dull. Okay? Apravritihi cha. Which is known, for Rajasic we saw Pravritihi. It's opposite. Pravritihi is the one that where the senses play mischief and then you are impelled to action, right? That's where the karmanam arambaha comes from, the pravritihi. The senses are very active. So they play mischief. They're very active. Here, apravritihi, the senses are also dull. Dull-wittedness, dull with dull senses, okay? Pramadaha, we saw that earlier, that is basically intoxication. With one important meaning of pramadaha, intoxication not with liquor, but with laziness, with lassitude. Always tendency to procrastinate. We will do it later. Let me sit some more time. Let me lie down here on the sofa. All these tendencies, that take you away from action. The laziness, right? And pramadaha, moham. Moham is attachment, delusion, ignorance, whatever you want to call it. So, evacha, all these, tamasi vivruddhe, etani, all these, tamasi vivruddhe. They're all coming out of the strong tamasic tendency, jayante, they come out of that. They manifest themselves. All these various signs and characteristics that happens. Aprakraso pravritischa pramado moha eva cha tamasyetadi jayante vivruddhe kurunandana. Slokam number 14. Now, if sattvic tendency So now from here, what are we learning from Bhagavan? No one tendency is predominant on a permanent basis. A very important thing to understand. That the tendencies play among themselves. That's what Bhagavan will come to. I'm getting ahead of Bhagavan's teaching. So let's wait. So if sattvic tendency is predominant at the time of death, then the indwelling soul reaches the pure and blemishless world of the supremely wise. At the time of leaving the body, what tendency is predominant? That determines where we take birth and where we go. Yada sattve pravriddhetu pralayam yati dehabhrit tadottama vidam lokan amalan pratipadhyate. Yada sattve pravriddhetu pralayam yati dehabhrit tadottama vidam lokan amalan pratipadhyate. Yada sattve pravriddhetu pralayam yati dehabhrit tada uttama vidam lokan amalan pratipadhyate. Padangal yada sattve pravriddhe tu pralayam yati dehabhrit. Tada, yada means tada has to come, right? Tada uttama vidam lokan amalan pratipadhyate. Yada when sattve pravriddhe tu. Pravriddhe, we have seen that before. Sattve pravriddhe tu. When the sattvic gunam is predominant, is dominant, is playing highly, okay? What happens now? Dehabhrit. Dehabhrit means one who is supporting the deha. Who is supporting the deha? The indweller, the soul, what we call as jivatma, right? So that dehabhrit, pralayam yati, that dehi, dehabhrit means dehi, the kshetrajna, whatever you want to call it, right? Dehi, dehabhrit, pralayam yati, when the body, the end of the life of the body has come. The body gives up its life. Okay, the dehi gives up the life on this particular deham. What happened? Tada, at that time, where does it go? Because remember, there is no death to the dehi. Dehi is indestructible. No birth, no death. But it takes these various bodies just the way we wear our shirts and then remove the shirt and wear a new one, right? It's exactly like that. So at that time, when the sattvic tendency is predominant, and remember, the gunas are attributes of the mind, not the body, okay? So the mind is very, very important. The mind is the one that pushes the soul to take birth again. If the mind is not there, there is no birth. Where does the soul go and what type of birth it takes at that time? Tada, at that time. Uttama vidam. That the most exalted jnani, the very wise. Amalan lokan. Amalan means no dirt, absolutely pure, no impurities. Pure lokan, those world. Pratipadhyate. It reaches that. So the time of leaving this body, if my mind is thinking sattvic tendencies, right, which means balanced, I'm thinking of Bhagavan, I'm thinking of peace, I don't have any desires, what happens? And depending upon the karmas and all that, that's another thing Bhagavan has taught us earlier, then you take birth in, you reach the world of the pure world of the supremely wise people, the company of rishis, in the company of devas, maybe Brihaspati, maybe Brahma himself, who knows, right? People who keep the company of Bhagavan. That is the company you attain. Amalan lokan pratipadhyate. Okay. We were in number 14, I think. 1 second. Yada satte pravriddhetu pralayam yati dehabhrit tadottama vidam lokan amalan pratipadhyate. So next question is obviously what happens if the rajasic tendency is predominant? Where do I go? Tamasic tendency is predominant. Where do I go? Right? Number 15. when Rajasic tendency is dominant at the time of death, rebirth among those attached to action takes place. Right? Makes sense? Likewise, with the dominance of tamas at the time of death, he takes birth in the wombs of the dull-witted and the unwise. Slokam number 15. Rajasi pralayam gatva karma sangishu jayate tata pralinaha tamasi mudhayonishu jayate. Rajasi pralayam gatva karma sangishu jayate tata pralinaha tamasi mudhayonishu jayate. Rajasi pralayam gatva karma sangishu jayate tata pralinaha tamasi mudhayonishu jayate. Padangal are Rajasi pralayam gatva karma sangishu jayate tata pralinaha tamasi mudha yonishu jayate. Now, Rajasi pralayam gatva. Rajasi, in the Rajasic tendency, in the Rajasic gunam, at that time, pralayam gatva, pralayam means basically dissolution, disappearance, becoming one with. Okay, layam means coming one with. The pralayam is becoming one with Bhagavan, which means you leave the body and go and be one with him, right? So pralayam gatva, but we call it as death. So in the Rajasic plane, if you die, pralayam gatva, karma sangishu, attachment to action, always action oriented, aggressive, what we call as a personality, like type A personality, right? That kind of a thing. Karma sangishu jayate. He takes birth. Who takes birth? This Dehi takes a body in that environment. Dehi has no birth or no death. It's a cycle that goes on. Tata, the same way, tamasi, in the tamasic tendency, pralinaha, if the death takes place when the tamasic tendency is dominant, what happens? Mudha yonishu. Yonihi. Yoni means that's a vehicle. Okay? Vehicle. Mudha means, we call it as, simple word in English we say is fool, but actually Mudha, as Adi Shankara says in Bhajagovindam, Mudha means one who does not think of Bhagavan. Okay, he is a Mudha. So in that environment, jayate, he takes birth. Rajasi pralayam gatva karma sangishu jayate tata pralinastamasi mudhayonishu jayate. Slokam number 16. It is said that good deeds yield pure sattva tendencies. Because the question now comes, when you hear, oh Swami, how can I develop sattvic tendency? Because I don't want to be born in a Mudha Yonishu, right? That Bhagavan is answering now, okay? It is said that good deeds yield pure sattvic tendencies. The Rajasic tendency leaves misery in its wake, and the Tamasic tendency promotes ignorance. So how do I develop good sattvic tendencies? By doing good deeds. And what are good deeds? Any deed that is done in the company of God is good deed. Okay? So, Karmanaha sukrutasyahu satvikam nirmalam phalam. Rajasastu phalam dukkam. Ajnanam tamasah phalam. Karmanaha sukrutasyahu satvikam nirmalam phalam. Rajasastu phalam dukkam. Ajnanam tamasah phalam. Karmanaha sukrutasyahu satvikam nirmalam phalam. Rajasastu phalam dukkam. Ajnanam tamasah phalam. Sukrutasya karmanaha. Sukrutasya. These are beneficial good deeds. That means you should never harm anybody, either yourself or others, either through thought or word or deed. That is sukrutam. Okay? So how can we do that? It looks so difficult to do, impossible to do, right? Because we are tinged, if not immersed in ego, right? The pride. So many things are there. So the only way to do that, sukrutam, is to think of Bhagavan. When I think something, speak something, or do something, think of him. Offer that to him. As Bhagavan himself taught us in I believe it was the 12th adhyayam, right? Okay. So, Sukrutasya Karmanaha, for the beneficial actions, action means thought, word and deed, always remember that. Phalam, the fruit, the reward is Satvikam, the Satvika tendency, which is what we want to get in order to reach the world of the wise, right, when we die. So we want to make sure at the time of taking the last breath, I should be able to say Bhagavan's name, and that can come only with practice. Nirmalam, we have seen this before, without any impurity. Nirmalam, malam means impurity. Nirmalam, without impurity, pure. We call it as pavitram. Ahu, they say. Who's they? Ahu means people who know. They say, it is said. Rajaha too, but for Rajasic Gunam, what is the phalam is what? What is the reward of that? What is the result of that? So the phalam for Tamasic Gunam, the reward or the result of that is Ajnanam, which is ignorance. Okay? Karmanaha Sukrutasyahu Satvikam Nirmalam Phalam Rajasastu Phalam Dukkham Ajnanam Tamasah Phalam. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om.